Hey, I love listening to your podcast. I'm a trucker, and I drive for long hours at a time, often straight through the night. The stories your listeners send in are very fascinating and keep this one old dude happy whilst I'm driving through the middle of nowhere. I have enjoyed listening for some time now. I never thought that I would have something to actually send in myself to tell you about. Let's be honest. I'm still not entirely sure what I saw, but if anybody might be able to help, I figured it would be you, and if I'm lucky, your listeners. So, with the content on your channel, we've all heard of a werewolf, and thank the sweet Lord that wasn't what I saw. At least I don't think it could have been, since I'm still here to tell you about it. So, I'll set the story up. I was just driving along, in the middle of listening to one of your shows actually, if you can believe it. I think it was a Skinwalker Encounter episode. Anyway, I was engrossed, and I had been going a decent speed, trying to make sure I get my destination on time. But I had to hit this backwoods kind of road due to road closures, and I gotta slow down, as I don't want to end up crashing the rig from going too fast. There's all these signs up too for various animals to watch out for. Even though I'm going to come off best, it makes a ton of mess when you run into a coyote. Trust me, I have ended up running over a pack of them before. It's a gory, bloody mess. Not a lot of fun. So anyway, I'm being careful, and my lights pick up on something not too far ahead. You know the way they light up an animal's eyes like a pair of tiny beacons, letting you know they're there. Only the first thing I noticed was that these eyes weren't low down and close to the ground. These eyes that I was looking at were really high up, so whatever had caught the beam of light was either really tall or somehow clinging to one of the tree trunks. Either on this side of the road, that was for sure not made up for semis. And then the outline of this animal comes into view the closer I get, and I could see for certain that this animal was indeed bigger than I could have ever imagined. Also, from the way it stood, it seemed to appear to be on its hind legs, like a dig when it's begging for food. The closer I get, the more unsure I was as to what this could have been. I crawled past it, as slow as I could manage to rig to get without causing it to spin. And let me tell you, I got to see what it looked like. It looked to be like some sort of crossbreed of an animal. I'm not sure what. It was large and stocky, but it kind of looked like a bear, and also kind of resembled a wolf in the head. I was right so far that this thing was huge. And again, I can't help but emphasize the strong, stocky body. It was covered in black hair, and even standing up it looked weird. But this is the kicker. The face was horrendous, very ugly. It looked like an actual wolf head, but the face was something else. It was like somebody had come along and spliced DNA together between a man, a bear, and a wolf. Trust me, I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's what I saw. I had to kind of cock my head and then turn around, just to make sure I wasn't seeing things. After I turned, it lumbered off back in the woods. Listen, I hate driving through them places. I'm always thinking of stuff like this, deliverance, wrong turn, you know. But I never would have thought I'd seen my very own cryptid. What exactly did I see? Was this a werewolf? Or was this something else? Maybe a skinwalker? I took my fiancée horseback riding as an almost married present. We looked at the trail where it split off in a fork and then rejoined. So, we decided that I would go one way and she would go the other, and we would see who would meet up at the junction first. I was by myself for several minutes, and things seemed to be going just fine. My horse didn't seem to have any issues listening to me. But then my horse froze and I didn't know why. I was following all the directions of the guide, and I didn't want to resort to using the spurs. When I looked up, I froze also. The creature that I was looking at had to have been standing at least 12 feet tall. In that intense moment, I almost thought it was just as wide. Its lips were curled in a snarl, and saliva dripped copiously from its scythe-like teeth. The proportions initially struck me as wolfish, especially the long bushy tail. The growth of fur on the cheeks looked like they were taken directly from the poster of a Wolfman movie from back in the days. The long snout, looking just as canine, but the sheer size of everything was so over-dramatized. It was like a bear on steroids, designed to kill and tear, with the added agility of a wolf. No bear could arch its back in such a sinister manner, and glower from beneath its eyebrows the way this thing did. My horse was petrified, and so was I. In a manner that was all too casual, it strode up to me, and it gripped the neck of my horse with one large paw, wrapping around it. And like something out of a cartoon, it pulled the horse out from underneath me, and I fell to the ground, just like a sack of grain. That's when the urge to move suddenly seized my horse. But by then, it was far too late. It battered the nose of the monstrous thing with all four hooves, and the thing looked like it tickled more than anything else. It took a huge bite out of the horse, like it was an apple, and the horse screamed and wailed in agony. The monster didn't seem to care for the sounds the horse was making, so the next bite was right on the horse's neck, where the head was, which, like biting into a stick of celery, snapped it off. I wanted to scream in absolute terror, as my survival-rigged brain just saw myself in place of the horse, and was commanding my body to get up and bolt. But I couldn't. I couldn't even scream, nor could I make a sound. I couldn't even move an inch. I blacked out, and I awoke to the side of my fiancée, looking at me like she'd seen a ghost. A glance showed that the remains of the horse were thrown in a heap nearby, mangled, bloody. I was drenched, and I smelled horrible. It occurred to me that I had been urinated on. This thing pissed on me. I guess that was an official announcement that I wasn't appetizing. Afterwards, I went on to develop an anxiety disorder with strange triggers. I was not only triggered by dense woods and trails, but also by horses. My rational mind thought it was ridiculous, but my nervous system had made up its own mind. I've taken my fiancé horseback riding again since then. I just haven't done any by myself. Now, I sit in the lodge or whatever is nearby with a cup of coffee, trying to steady my nerves. I was busy one time walking my dog at the edge of the woods, towards the edge of town, when I saw something pretty crazy. We live close to a really large mountain range, so you gotta be careful. It isn't exactly unheard of to come across bears, wolves, and cougars, so you have to have your wits about you. After all, cougars especially will pounce when they get a chance to. And we've already had issues with neighbors' small dogs disappearing, so I know they're very much around this area. Thankfully, these particular woods where people tended to take their pets didn't have too many sightings, so we were pretty safe, but we always remained on alert. Typically, we were quite far in when I heard a growl that sounded distinctly like a bear. I grabbed my dog's leash, and she began shaking frantically. I could hear movement not too far in front of us and to the side, although it seemed to be pretty low to the ground for a bear, so I was hoping it might be a young one. Maybe not a cub, because that means a mom is nearby, but a juvenile would be easier to deal with. You never want to meet a bear cub, as you know the overprotective mama will be very close by, which feels like a death sentence. Anyway, my dog was whining and shaking And I'm wondering whether we should just run when I see the back of the thing making the noise. And now I'm confused but no less scared as it looks like a small wolf. I can see its long tail as it turns slightly. I can make out the canine body and grayish coloring. I'm still thinking we should just run when it turns fully and faces me. I took one look, and I didn't care whether I was meant to show dominance, back away, slow or what. I pulled the dog by the leash, and we ran all the way back to the car, in which I jumped, threw the dog in, and off we went. It was only when I got home that I allowed myself to fully process what I'd seen. You see, although the thing in the body had been small, when it turned to look at me, it was more resembling a bear. It kind of had a mix of a face. The skull was wide like a bear, but the snout was kind of like a wolf. It had tiny beady eyes, but long, sharp-pointed ears. The body was strange. I don't even know how to tell you. Don't ask me how any of this is possible. Perhaps it's a new kind of predator, or maybe some mixed species of animal. I don't know. Part of me even played over the possibility that a wolf had killed a bear, but that's just crazy. What did I see?